friends and family, to a canning edition of the Wellness Homesteader. So y'all, I am going to be working today on canning tomatoes. So what I have are some very beautiful yellow tomatoes. They're almost like an orangey yellow. And I picked what was ripe and left a few, because I want to eat on them. I love my tomato sandwiches. But I want to share with you a different way of canning tomatoes other than the traditional water bath that I believe makes for a tastier tomato. So if you're new to canning, I'll try to share a little bit of my setup and just encouragement, but let me tell you, tomatoes are very, very easy to can, and being a high acid food, you don't have to pressure can them. That said, I am going to do them cold pack. So I've got a pot here of boiling water. I'm just dipping the tomatoes till the skin wrinkles. Then they will go into the sink in a cold water bath. I'll bring you back when I have them all skinned, and then talk about different ways to preserve tomatoes and why I like doing the cold pack method. So I hope you'll stay tuned. So if you've never de-skinned tomatoes or taken the peel off and canned before, I think the very easiest way is to have a big pot of boiling water like I did. You just dip them in, and let's see if I can show you. Yeah, so the skin, if you see here, will start to crack, and you're not trying to cook the tomato, you're just trying to get the skin off. I think that makes it so easy to do. Now, some people can the peel and all. I personally would not, just because I don't eat tomato peel. So what I'm doing is I'm peeling and coring them, and I'm gonna put them in a big bowl right here. I try to do this all kind of in steps. So I will do all of the peeling and all of the coring and then all of the chopping, and then we'll get to canning. So normally when you can tomatoes, you use a water bath method, but it's fairly short processing time. If you are covering your tomatoes with hot water and, canning hot into a hot canner, I have found that cold packing produces, in my opinion, a better product. I don't add any water, so I'm using the flesh and the juice only of the tomato, and you squish it down in the jar. And when you do that, whether you're doing a quart or a pint, the processing time goes way, way up. So it's 85 minutes. And I'll show you here in a moment the book. I try to only use approved canning. And y'all, I don't know if you saw, but recently, and I think it was in Arizona, first cases of botulism that they've had in many, many years. And it was linked back to, because of course it's going to be investigated, some home canned, I think it's called Nepales. It's just like a cactus that you can eat. And a lot of people became very ill. I don't know if anyone passed away, subsequent to that, but it was just a good reminder to me to follow the directions, have everything as clean as you possibly can. So before I messed up my kitchen, I had to clean the whole kitchen, just to make sure I'm starting off, with the cleanest possible situation. So let me finish these two up, reposition the camera, and then we'll get to jarring up. All right, we have a beautiful bowl here of peeled tomatoes. I washed 7 jars. I think only 6 pints will fit in my Presto Precise digital canner. Oh, Lord, tell me it's not gonna be one of those days. You could totally use just a water bath on the stove. one of the reasons I like using this is it doesn't put as much heat into the air, and it's actually raining today. We've had 3/10 of an inch. I'm looking at my weather station. It's 64 degrees right now, and it is, pardon me, got the hiccups, 8:45. So, good time to get started. If you're new to canning, or maybe you've just taken a long break, y'all, I have to admit, just setting up my canning station, I was like, wow, it's been a while since I've done this. I canned so much last year, and I didn't can in the winter, I don't think at all. I might have done some beans. This is probably my favorite book. I understand there's a new one out, but this is just the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. It just has so many great recipes, but it also has the basics. So let me get to the page here. It's on page 356, if you want to screenshot this. It is raw packed tomatoes with no added liquid. Packing tomatoes raw with no added liquid produces the most concentrated flavor. However, this method requires extended processing time to ensure that the heat fully penetrates to the center of the jar. You'll need about 3 pounds of tomatoes for each quart. I'm just gonna, like, if I need more jars and have to do 2, I'll do 2. I want to do some pints, y'all, with it just being me and I'm not cooking, you know, for a large crowd. I like having pints, and I love yellow tomatoes because they're not as acidic. So what you will need is bottled lemon juice with a 5% acidity, I believe is what it says, or citric acid. And y'all, I like the citric acid method, and I buy it in huge quantities. Now this is a food grade, non-GMO product. I also use it in some of my soap and bath and body type creations, so I always buy it in the large thing. So I just offloaded some into a little container. You also need non-iodized salt. That is optional. I will tell you, your tomatoes will have a better flavor if you do use the non-iodized salt. Why non-iodized? Any iodized salt has a risk of precipitating out and also just makes your product look less pretty. So it kind of acts as a color preservative, I will say, in my experience. So for each pint, so that's 2 cups, you can use either a tablespoon of lemon juice or a 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid. Now, some people really like the lemon juice flavor. I don't. I think it's off-putting. And that may just be because I have always used citric acid, and anytime I've like maybe didn't have someone hand and tried the lemon juice, I think it alters the tomato flavor. But I've also watched YouTubers who will only use lemon juice, so either one works. So why are we adding acid to a high acid fruit, and tomatoes are technically a fruit? Well, we can't guarantee that the acidity level of, I'm going to say, commercially grown tomatoes is high enough to make it shelf stable for canning. So, you know, even though these are lower acid, I feel very safe adding the citric acid. There's no contraindication to canning yellow tomatoes. So the salt is 1/2 teaspoon. And then if you're doing quarts, it's 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1/2 teaspoon of citric acid, and then a teaspoon of salt. So what I am going to do here to start, I kind of have my canning station set up, so let me tip you down. So I'm soaking my lids. I know we don't have to. I still do. I have my funnel, because guys, this is a messy, messy job when you're pushing those tomatoes down in. I have my thing to debubbler, that's what it's called. And then in here, I have a bit of vinegar to wipe the rims. So, and then my other 2 ingredients. So what I'm going to do to start, I don't know how many jars I'm gonna need, so I'm just gonna do 4 to start. So let's do the 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid first into each of these 4 jars, because I know I have at least 4. And y'all, mine's a little bit lumpy, so I'm just mushing out the lumps. So super simple, right? So normally, if you were using a non-raw pack method and you're going to be adding hot water, let me go up to 1/2 for the salt. You know, you would be getting your water heated up, but since this is going to be cold jars into a cold canner, I just have the preliminary water in the canner up to the fill line, and then we will add more as we go along. So, all right, guys, there is nothing neat about this. So, I am going to start with, these are such beautiful tomatoes, y'all. They really, really are. So I like to just quarter my tomatoes. I think it makes them easier to mush in. So let's do a couple here. And I don't think I said this, I've already washed all my jars, lids, and rings in hot soapy water. So yeah, this is not going to be more than 4 jars, I don't think. You can get a lot in when you're not adding water. So I'm hoping you can see, I'm pushing on it and you can see the liquid in the tomatoes starting to come out. My hands are already messy. So what you want to do is it's really challenging to get these fully debubbled without doing a lot of pressing and smushing. You might have an easier time if you made the tomatoes smaller, but this works for me. So I think it's also easier to do it with a wide mouth, but that's not what I have. I am using the Ball Anniversary jars. They're so pretty. And I believe it says 1/2 inch headspace, but let's double check. Like I said, guys, I'm a little rusty. Yes, 1/2 inch headspace. So I'm gonna go up, y'all, to this ring right here. And I'm gonna get one more piece of tomato in. I think that will be just about perfect. Okay. So take a quick peek around your jar, make sure there are no, pardon me, air pockets. And this is quite messy. So you want to make sure you really clean those rims good. And you can use a cloth. You don't have to use a paper towel. And some people just use plain water. That would actually work pretty well with the tomatoes since it's not sticky. So just finger tight on the lid. I'm gonna just set them aside for now, and I'm gonna continue filling. And I will bring you back when I have all my jars filled and talk a little bit about using your Presto Precise digital canner for water bath instead of pressure canning. All right, well, I ended up with 5 pints. I went and picked 2 more tomatoes and only ended up needing 1. But I'm very happy with that. It should fit just fine into the canner. I'd say the biggest downside to the Presto Precise is it does not hold a whole lot. But I do have a Ball electric canner that's great for water bathing. It's not a pressure canner that holds a whole lot more. So as the season goes on, I may not normally be using this. So this says, go ahead and fill your pot up to a fill line. There's a fill line in there. Add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, and that really helps with the deposits that end up on the jar. Now, normally, if we were hot packing, we would have our jars in here. We would have this started and have the jars half filled with water so that the jars would be warming up to receive the hot liquid. But since this is all cold, we are simply going to bypass that. And I'm going to load the jars in first. And gosh, yeah, this could have held probably at least 2 more, so that's good. You want to take the regulator off. You never want to water bath can with the regulator on. And sometimes y'all have trouble. Uh-oh. There we go. Now, get back here. I'm going to go ahead and set it, but I need to make sure that the canner is full to about 1 inch above the jar, so you cannot water bath quarts in this either. So let's turn it on, maybe. Uh-oh. No, that helps if it's plugged in. Okay, there we go. So it comes up. Let me try to tip this so y'all can see. Pressure can. We're going to turn it to boiling water can and hit next. Oh, okay, somehow it went back to pressure can. Let's start over. And it's automatically defaults to 5. We want it 85 minutes. And it's going to tell you to insert your jars, etc., etc. So what I'm going to do is just take a picture, and I'm going to fill this till the water level is about 1 inch above the jar, so it's going to be almost to the total top. And once I've gotten that done, I'll click next. So hang on. All right, y'all. So I've got it filled up here. You want to go ahead and put your lid on, lock it. And this says insert jars, so I'm going to hit OK or next. It's going to say warm, and that's fine too, because the next thing that comes in will be fill jars, and we're just going to arrow past each one of these. I've already set it for the 85 minutes, and really, guys, I don't have to babysit it at all. That's one really nice thing. Gives me time to get the kitchen cleaned up, and you know, being a single person to cook for, I like doing the small batch canning, and I did purchase a small batch canning book that is USDA approved, and I like that as well. So I think, you know, in reality, I'm not feeding my mom, I'm not feeding my son anymore. I need to cut back on the batch size. Now, I will have a lot of tomatoes. I don't know if y'all can see as they come in. This makes it really nice to do small batch canning, and I almost always use the cold pack method. I just think the tomatoes taste better. So let me wash up these dishes. I'll bring you back when we're ready for the next step. But I just wanted to point out, if you do have the Presto Precise, there are instructions. I keep the manual handy on exactly how to do it, what you should do and what you shouldn't do, you know, like the regulator, for example. So I'm gonna wash up these dishes, rest a little bit, by then this thing ought to be cooking with gas, so to speak. And we'll talk a little bit more about what's coming up, guys, because I am really excited about something coming up. All right, guys, stay tuned. So the canner has beeped. It says it's warm, and it says fill jars, which we have already done, so I'm going to hit next. And now it's going to heat, and once it reaches the boiling point, it will automatically count down 85 minutes. And while I said I don't feel like I need to babysit this, I wouldn't like leave the house or be outside during the processing time, even though this isn't under pressure. Just in case anything goes wrong, I don't like leaving it when it's running. All right, guys, I'll see you in 85 minutes or so. Just to quickly update here, it now says canning. You can kind of see the steam is escaping from the pressure valve that you take off anytime you water bath can, and it will just start to count down. We're at 84 minutes. Once it's finished, I will take off the lid, and I will leave it set for about maybe 10 minutes before I pull the jars, and I'll bring you back at that time and share with you what we might be doing coming up. All right, 85 minutes elapsed. It does an automatic 5-minute countdown for cooling. I will do some additional. Once this signals the cool down is done, I'll take the lid off. I'll leave it set for about 10 minutes just so the jars don't get shocked. and end up cracking, and we'll put them over here on our canning mat. All right, y'all, all of our jars are out of the canner. They have sealed. I did want to point out, you will notice that the meat of the tomato rose and the juice separates to the bottom. It always does that. It will relax some as it cools. If it's off-putting to you, you can rotate the jar, but it's gonna settle out again that way. It's because of the density of the tomato liquid being a bit heavier than the tomato pieces. So I hope this gave you some ideas for maybe a new way of canning tomatoes to maximize flavor. I'm not even going to tear down my canner and do anything with it because I think by tomorrow I'm gonna have another batch that needs to be done. And y'all, I won't film every batch, no worries there. But I wanted to share this because it's an improved method, but it isn't one that I see used a lot when I'm watching YouTube, which I'm watching YouTube back there to try to cover that up. So the exciting news, y'all, we're gonna be doing, not sure what that was, some crafts coming up. We haven't done crafts for quite some time. I am going to do a Halloween series. So for those of you who don't like Halloween, instead of just doing straight up Halloween things, I will be talking about how you could modify the project to be more fall versus, you know, straight up spooky season if Halloween is offensive to you. And again, I think that's a personal decision. I'm fine with it, but not everybody likes it. So I think it will help those of you who don't enjoy Halloween to actually enjoy the video and maybe get some ideas for some inexpensive crafts you can make too. I'm waiting on some supplies. Y'all have the worst Dollar Tree in the whole United States, I think. They just never have anything. And in order to get to a Dollar Tree that does have something, it's about a 45-minute drive one way. So, yeah, I will probably not visit Dollar Tree this year. I'm not going to make a ton of things, but every year we need a little something new, don't we, to make fall, my favorite season, a lot of fun and attractive. So I'm thankful I got that canning done, because y'all, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I'm not sick, but I didn't feel well this morning. I don't know. You know, some days just with back pain and having lupus, I don't feel the best, but I pushed a little bit and I'm so glad I did. None of my tomatoes went to waste. That was my biggest concern. And even though I have too many tomatoes, I still don't want to waste. I would rather, you know, share them with friends, family, neighbors, etc. All right, guys, I will see you on Saturday, Lord willing. But until then, do me a big favor, smash that like button, drop me a comment below. Have you tried the cold pack method of preserving tomatoes, and do you prefer it over the water, adding the water to the jar? All right, until I see you again, be healthy, be well, be blessed, and take care.